so annoying.
Ravenous is a 1999 horror Western film directed by Antonia Bird, starring Guy Pearce, Robert Carlyle, Jeremy Davies, Jeffrey Jones, and David Arquette. Welcome back to the Cult of Films. I'm John, the host, and
I love David Arquette getting billed above Neil McDonough in this movie.
Oh, I'm sorry. After you, Captain.
he's the real hero of the story.
He married Courtney Cox. He was my hero in real life. He's like, I'm just going to be a big dork. I love wrestling, and the hottest woman on the planet is my wife. I guess he did okay. He was okay in this movie. He played a stoner. That was good.
Yeah.
And then there's Private Cleaves. The over-medicated Private Cleaves.
There wasn't much else for him to do.
We have Jason Alt and Lindsay Washburn, and we are talking about a movie that I cannot believe I had no idea existed until Jason told me about it 2 days ago.
I can't believe that either. I can't believe that.
Jesus Christ. How are you holding out on me?
How have you not seen this?
I don't know.
How have you heard me talk about it before?
This is like a perfect storm of something that was in my purview, like 1999, the year, right? Like,
yeah.
This is high school for us.
This was so perfect for you. I didn't want to insult your intelligence by implying you might not have seen this.
Because Memento was 2000, right? So like Guy Pearce was on my radar. Like all these people, Trainspotting was like one of my favorite films back in the day. And I just never heard of it. I was able to go almost 40 years. Well, I mean, this hasn't been out for 40 years, but I almost turned 40 without even knowing that this film was a film.
I wasn't going to let you turn 40 having missed this.
Well, thank God for that. This is so fresh and meaty that all the puns, that I didn't even have time to really research this movie. It was so like in my brain that I had to like just word vomit about it. So this is a little bit more raw of an episode, dare I say. Got him.
Is that all you did to prep, was just write down a bunch of cannibalism puns?
Yeah. Jason, how did you hear about this movie?
My friends rented it.
Oh.
Or maybe my friend's parents rented it and they watched it and they're like, you gotta see this bad shit movie. So this was, back when you would go to Blockbuster and then just look at a movie's like case and you're like, yeah, that looks good.
This sounds cool.
That's how you end up renting Cool World, I guess, right?
Yeah.
You're like, ooh,
got us all. Yeah.
Another Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So yeah. It used to be you just went to Blockbuster and then you would ask the person behind the counter, like, is this movie good? And they're like, I make $4 an hour. And you're like, all right. I'm sorry to bother you. So you would just get something that had a cool looking jacket, I guess. And somebody rented this and then they're like, you have to watch this. And we did have to watch this.
Right.
Bravo.
And now I probably watch this movie every 2 or 3 years.
I discovered it sort of the same way. I found it at Blockbuster, but I didn't have friends that watched horror movies and fucked up shit. So I had nobody to talk to this movie about until I started doing YouTube and Twitter shit. So I've just been sitting on this movie for like 15 years and I love it. I watch it every year at least. How can I say this? How this movie flew under the radar like it did is beyond me. It's beyond me. I don't get it.
They didn't spend $60 million promoting it because it was just like a weird art film.
That's true. But
Jeffrey Jones was the best known person in this cast.
Yeah,
at the time.
and that's not good.
We have a great sense of camaraderie here at Fort Spencer.
Arquette was coming off a Scream. I mean, it had people in it, and Carlisle was in Trainspotting. So you had like the movie sharps. Like, no, I guess this was for them, and still, like, it was just there and gone. Listen, you bastards! I worked at Blockbuster, and I never saw this. Like, and looking at the jackets, you guys said the covers. I found
It's
two
teeth.
online.
Yeah,
It's terrible. Like
It's
I wouldn't even if
terrible.
I saw it, I would never have picked this up. The other one looks like Legends of the Fall. It's just like I'm like, nope.
Yeah. All you need is just like a cook pot with a foot sticking out of it. And you're like, all right, I'm
Oh,
in.
yeah.
Yeah.
And but even now, it still hasn't hit like that cult film status that it should have. There's still not
like
a lot
Cube.
of people that talk about
Yeah.
this movie.
This is like the perfect movie for us where like it's a cult film, but people who like cult films might not have heard of it. We're not
Yeah.
preaching to the crowd and
No.
or to the choir entirely. There's a chance we turn some people onto this movie, and I'll feel good about that because
Yeah.
you should watch this movie. It's absolutely bonkers.
Yes.
Yeah, let's get that out of the way. I think it gets all three of our strong recommendations, but there's no way to talk about this without talking about it.
About how Antonia Bird was only the third person. Okay, so
Yeah.
originally Milcho Manchevsky was set up to direct this, and Milcho got fired after 2 weeks. If you recognize the name, it's because Before the Rain in 1994 was quite possibly the best director debut feature film of like the early 90s. Like Before the Rain was fantastic. You'll recognize like the guy who was Boris the Bullet Dodger from Snatch in that movie, and that's like about it. But if you haven't seen Before the Rain from 1994, track it down. Just fantastic. And then Milcho did some stuff that you haven't heard of in an episode of The Wire. So Milcho was out, and the studio wanted to bring in Raja Gosnell, and the cast was like, no. If you recognize the name Raja Gosnell, it could be because you've seen Big Mama's House, Scooby-Doo, Never Been Kissed, or Scooby-Doo 2, or the two Smurfs movies.
Oh no.
Like when a studio needs a movie to get made by anybody, this is the guy they called. So imagine the guy who directed Big Mama's House
Directing something like this. Oh my god.
directing Ravenous a year earlier. Wouldn't have worked out. So
No.
Gosnell was out. So finally Robert Carlyle was like, look, I worked with Antonia Bird on a movie called Priest. We had a good time. I was into it. She's good. Let's get her. So they brought her in to save the project, and there was no talk of it being cursed after that. It was just sort of like, all right, we have a director. She seems to know what she's doing. If you look at some of the other stuff she's done, I don't know. I kind of liked her take on it.
She did a lot of TV. I saw that. And what I did see was a lot of interviews pre and post mortem from Antonio Bird of Robert Carlyle just saying about what a fucking professional she is and how amazing of a director she was.
It's okay to make a mistake here, to get up and just, make an idiot of yourself if you want. Doesn't matter. It's going to be okay because I'm going to protect you. And very, very quickly the actors began to understand that they were working, dealing with somebody here that they'd never met before. This is a special person they had here. This was Antonia Bird.
She had like 2 weeks to jump on this production and save it.
1 week prep, a week to prep this thing.
Yeah.
So they were doing shit on the fly, and a lot of the other actors are just like, we don't know what to do. And she's like placing them, and she's like blocking it like it's a theater production, and they're just like, we have no idea. This is not what we're used to. And he just kept vouching for her. He's just like, no, you got to trust the process, because the end result of this film is going to be incredible. It's going to be grotesque and beautiful, and it turned out to be all of those things. This is a near fucking perfect movie, and like to find something like this,
You've seen it one time.
Twice.
You've seen it twice in 2 days. All right.
Yeah. I swear to God, like it is like a Coen Brothers meets Mike Judge film. It's like Coen Brothers, where it's not a horror comedy. It's a comedy, or it's like a horror with just the edge fringes, just having a tint of humor to it. But there's never a joke.
It's just the violence is absurd.
Done.
Nothing is played for laughs, but it is kind of
It's funny, but it's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's funny like Steve Buscemi going through a wood chipper
Exactly.
is funny.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And when you're like, what's funny about that? You're like, I don't know. He
It's just
put it through fucking wood chipper. He was an alive person. And then he went through, that's for wood. Like, there's nothing funny about it, but also it's like a wood chipper is just such an absurd thing to do to a person.
Yeah. Robert Carlyle, it's a dramatic scene, and he says with a straight face, I ate 5 men in 6 months. And I'm just dying. I'm just laughing because it's just such a fucking crazy thing to say.
Because that was the first conversation they had with him. They're like, let's get him inside and get him warm. He's like, by the way, I eat people.
Just so you know.
Go full spoiler, Jason, what is this movie about?
Ravenous is about a soldier in the Mexican-American War who is a coward, and instead of leading his men, he lays on the ground and pretends to be dead. And he does such a good job of playing dead that he gets thrown in a wagon full of dead bodies. And after having his superior officer's blood run into his mouth, he suddenly goes full badass mode, jumps out of the meat wagon. He's behind enemy lines, and he just strolls up to their command post and captures all of their officers. And he's a huge hero. But like immediately, anybody who was there was like, yeah, this guy sucks. And so they're like, cool, we can't like kick you out of the military for being a coward because you did a heroic thing, but we're not going to like reward you either. Mm-mm. So we're sending you all the way to California at this like mission built by, missionaries. It's a fort that was like, it used to be a mission.
Yeah.
So
it was like a Spanish mission or something.
Yeah. It's like the equivalent of the Russians sending people to Siberia. It's like, we're not going to kick you out of the military, but like, we're going to give you a bad posting. So this guy gets a bad posting.
It's like right at the edge of the Sierra Nevadas.
His first night there, a guy wanders into the camp and he is, freezing and starving, and he collapses when he gets to the gate. And so they let him in, and it turns out he was taking shelter in a cave from a storm with a bunch of people. They ate all the livestock, and the storm didn't break, and so they had to resort to cannibalism.
It was like an Oregon Trail type deal.
Yeah. So they all go back out to the cave to look for survivors, and then he just kills half of the people in this military unit.
If you haven't seen this movie, go watch it before you watch this video.
Sure, yeah. And
should I say less of the plot? But like, it's about cannibalism, essentially. But it's based around the Native American Wendigo myth, where the Wendigo was once a man, but he ate another man's flesh, and he became so hungry for human flesh that no amount was enough, and it turned him into a monster that just like you used to scare children and tell them not to run off into the woods, I guess. So like the myth of the Wendigo, where you eat a human's flesh and it just turns you into a ravenous, insatiable monster, but also makes you super powerful because they do get the power of the person they ate. So you you have the strength of 2 men now if you eat somebody else.
It's basically a Super Mario like mushroom power up. Because it's like instant. There is like compound fractures that these people are having, and they're instantly healed once they eat some human flesh.
Bullet wounds, yeah.
So great, yeah.
And it's like, well, if you could eat people and like become this powerful, why don't we know about this? It's because there's such a taboo around eating human flesh. It would be so funny if like a miracle cure was under our noses the whole time. It's like, wait, you didn't think to eat another person's? Like, of course not.
Of course not.
That's the last thing. I ate my belt before I ate a dead guy. Are you kidding me? Right. And it's funny with like, there's a trade-off for breaking that taboo, which was you become super strong and you heal, but you lose your humanity.
You have a different hunger now that you have to abide to. It's a zombie movie. It's a vampire movie.
It's a folk horror.
It's a folklore. Yeah, because the Wendigo is like you think of the Wendigo, and a lot of other horror movies have done it. It's that like a cow skull with the antlers and shit. But this is just like, what if the Wendigo is just like a person? So. And it's so metaphorical too, because you never know what you're really seeing on the screen is what's happening, or if these people are feeling this way. So you could really go that way. It's got huge homosexual undertones to it, and even Robert Carlyle was very aware of that, and he played that part of it up too. So
remember the energy, the potency of someone else coursing through your veins, someone brave. Disappointment as it dissipates.
it's like 4 different movies, and 3 of which you're not actually watching on screen.
If you think of the whole thing as kind of like a gay allegory, it's the way Jeffrey Jones does every scene becomes a lot funnier.
That's true.
Have a walnut, Boyd.
Oh my, he's kind of a problematic figure, but I love his performance in this film because he's just so fucking matter of fact about everything. His performance is just
He's very Jeffrey Jones.
so natural and organic, and you believe everything that's coming out of his mouth. And that's what I love about this is the characters, while not 100% fleshed out, had their own mannerisms and their own style and their own personality, and that just made the movie even better.
Although Neil McDonough and Jeremy Davies just played their respective characters from Band of Brothers and Saving Private
It's true.
Ryan.
It's all right.
You all right?
That's kind of like some of the only.
Like, do you need a
characters
guy to
they
like
play,
stare in
though.
horror and drop a gun when he should be helping his comrade? Well, Jeremy Davies is available.
But again, everyone's so playing it straight.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Jones just cracking walnuts made me laugh because it's so absurd. It's just like the opening to this sets up so much.
Oh my gosh.
You get a Nietzsche quote, and then right underneath it just says "Eat me,
Eat me.
by Anonymous." And then you get the
And it's got that twang sound effect with it.
oh my god, the sound design in this is the biggest character of this film. The score and the sound design is fucking insane because none of it sounds like a comedic frontier movie. Robert Carlyle looks at Jeremy Davies and he has him dead to rights. He's just like, run. And then it's like, and it's like, what is happening? But it all gels so beautifully. The opening scene, like I said, it has that like Coen brothers, like fast cuts of them eating steaks. And everything's super, they make the real food in this super gross. And I think on purpose.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they make the human meat look appetizing.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I love when Boyd first gets to Fort Spencer and Hart is kind of showing him around and telling him who everyone there is, who is there in the camp and what they do. And we get these like smash cuts to just little character setups for each one of them. And I just love it how they do that. And he's like, is it Colonel Knox, who never met a glass of bourbon he didn't like? And it's like, from what he says and what they show, you know instantly who these characters are.
You know that Knox is going to be a Deus Ex Machina in this movie because he's so forgettable.
Yeah.
They like show him to you and then they forget to put him in scenes and then he shows up at opportune. You just know that he's going to save the day because you're going to forget about him.
Yeah.
What are you cooking?
It's stew.
You need any help?
No, though perhaps later you might contribute.
You let me know.
Too much bourbon in his bourbon.
I like how they made Neil McDonough just stand in a freezing river. Just be like, your
Just for
character's
that-
tough and we're going to establish that by
for that
torturing you as an
3-second
actor.
clip.
The screams were real.
I bet.
Yeah, I mean, even if there wasn't that crazy ass turn, it set it up like the side characters, the red shirts essentially are so fleshed out and they're so fun and they're so you could tell that this is like it's the Suicide Squad type deal or like the Bad News Bears. These are the outcasts that everyone just shits out of the army where it's like you're not shitty enough to fire, but we're just going to exile you to this place.
Oh yeah.
So, did anyone do anything today?
And even just beyond like the who these people are, like he drinks a lot or whatever, but each character like ingrains their whole body language into what kind of character they are. Because you've got Reich, he's a soldier. He's always, he's standing upright. He's always walking straight up and just the way he moves and the way he interacts with people. And then you've got the religious guy.
Toffler.
This was just always like this, and just very meek and mild. And Knox is just a mess all over the place. And Hart's just doesn't really give a fuck anymore. He's dropping shit constantly and doesn't realize it. And
Cool.
hard.
Huh?
Kind of hard.
What? Oh, thank you. Ooh. Need that.
Because he knows it's a shit assignment.
Oh yeah, he's like, we gotta go. It's our job. We got to do it.
Yeah.
You have the native guy that knows what's going to happen, what's going on, and no
Can
one
you believe
fucking
that he
listens.
was 45 years old when they made this movie?
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, he looked like he was in his 20s. Joseph Ronnie
Yeah.
Fox. He looks a little bit older now. He's still acting, but man, yeah, he was 45 in this movie.
That's crazy.
That's unreal. Yeah.
And probably one of my more favorite characters was Martha, because she was just like, fuck this shit the whole time.
Yeah,
the whole
the natives
time.
are like, we know what's going on. This
Yeah.
is fucked up. And everyone's like, no, that's mystical, native spiritual mumbo jumbo. And of course, it's like what bites everyone in the ass.
But I do love how he flips over the deer skin. And he's like, Christians eat the body of Christ every Sunday.
Yeah. With a zoom Raimi shot of
Oh yeah. It was it had comedic timing the way they cut that.
White man eats the body of Jesus Christ every Sunday.
Yeah. But again, it's like everything is played so straight. We're like, was that a joke? It's all like the whole movie's an inside joke where you're like, should I be laughing at that? Should I not? Like, it's just so well done that way. The timing in this is great. The reveal of, I mean, Robert Carlyle, I'm going on the record saying he is the Scottish Willem Dafoe, because he could play like quiet and menacing, and then 10 seconds later he's batshit crazy, chewing up the scenery, but he's not taking you out of it. He is just such a, like, he's so good at this. He was perfectly cast for this.
Oh yeah.
Conversely, I would say the weakest part, but I don't even think it's his fault, is Guy Pearce, because he's just so monotone. Because he's going through the same shit that Robert Carlyle's character is going through, but you could tell he's trying to keep it bottled up.
He's the surrogate for, it's so funny you say this, because he's the exact main character from Midnight Mass. It's so funny you don't like Guy Pearce, because he's literally the main character from Midnight Mass.
Sure.
So you love Midnight Mass so much, I can't believe you missed that connection.
Yeah, no.
He's a surrogate for the audience.
Oh yeah.
They did that Ubermensch character a lot in like the late 90s, where it was just like everybody's Neo. You just put on the sunglasses, make your face go blank, and the audience like, yeah, I'm Neo. That's me. I'm the one kicking everybody's ass. I can jump off a cliff and land on a pine tree and survive. I'm the one. And that was, I don't know, that's just sort of a thing they did to have his POV be your eyes experiencing the movie. So when you have a character like that, you can't do too much scenery chewing. You just kind of have to point your head so the audience knows where to look.
Yeah, and most of his characterizations came from the choices that he made, because he's a coward. Everything he does stems from that cowardice. I mean, even when he's laying there almost dying with Reich right next to him, he's like, I need you to tell me what to do. I need you to tell me what to do. Because this is a person that just is 100% at his core a coward.
What did you get the medal for?
Cowardice.
And of course, there's kind of an arc to that at the end,
Well, he does. If you think about it, really, from a biological standpoint, he does take the coward's way out.
Yeah.
If he had fought for his own
true.
survival,
That's true.
that would be, that would be development for his character. But he didn't fight for his own survival.
That is
He
true.
took the coward's way out and, decided to stop cannibalism at its source, I guess.
And Neil McDonough's face is he has such a intense expression. Maybe especially because he's so fucking blonde and he's so
You got those
fucking,
blue eyes.
crystal blue eyes. So even because this movie's very darkly lit, there's a lot of caves, it's a lot of walking at night, and then when they both fall into this wooded ravine, you could see his features are just like glowing, and that just makes it like weird and otherworldly. And he has this fucking smile on his face.
Yeah.
It is so creepy.
Because he's upside down, so his smile looks even more grotesque because he's upside down.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just grinning this rictus.
That's another thing that I love about this movie is there's a lot of gore, a lot of realistic gore. You know, it's not over the top like 80s slasher film kind of gore. I mean,
but it doesn't wait to get started either.
No, it doesn't.
10
no, it
seconds
doesn't.
into this movie, a guy's got a mouth full of blood, and you're like, all right.
And the blood isn't like that corn syrupy looking blood. It is dark, dark, meaty blood.
Dare I say appetite? I swear, I think it was a choice. Like
right?
all of the human blood just looks like, oh, that's kind of chewy. They're eating. I don't know. I don't even know what they're eating. Like their first meal when they're sitting down.
Yeah, they all got steaks because they were doing like an award.
Oh no! After that, once he's at the outpost, it's like some kind of bean soup or something, and it just looks so gross.
Yeah.
And you're just waiting for them to like flash back and eat human again. It's so weird, the mind games at this place. Jeremy Davies too, his little arc where he can't even like formulate a sentence really. He's very like stuttery and stuff, but then like the clearest he is where he's just like, he's licking me, and it's just such like this movie goes from haha to oh my god so fast and so effortlessly.
Because that is very funny. Like if you were all in a group and some guy was wounded and some guy licked him, you would not think it was funny if that's how you woke up.
No.
But
how would
as
you
an
even
outside
react
observer
to that
is not in a room with someone who's licking people's wounds, that's very funny. But it's going through a wood chipper funny.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my gosh.
I love go outside. Boyd, you're sleeping outside too. Like the turn or like the reveal, like the super spoilers, but you know, of Jeffrey Jones's character, how he doesn't die and he comes back and he's just so just like go with the flow kind of general. He's like, I guess I'm eating people now.
He's like, nah, I could kill you, but it's lonely when you're a cannibal.
Right?
It's hard to make friends.
That's an exact
That was the funniest fucking line in the whole movie. It's lonely being a cannibal. It's hard to make new friends.
Just
Cannibals are always having new friends over for dinner.
Right. One thing, just rewatching this film again today, when Robert Carlyle and Guy Pearce are having their little scenes together, it reminded me a lot of Interview with a Vampire between Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise, because it was the same kind of relationship, I think.
And the edging on to the verge of.
Yes, again, the homosexuality, and I think it's slightly stealthier in this one than in Interview with the Vampire, but it's not something that was seen a lot back at the 90s.
Yeah, and Carlisle is like fucking the shit out of Guy Pearce the entire movie, where Guy Pearce has these bursts of emotions, and he's so monotone and so like dull most of the time, but whenever
that's how he is in everything though. He was so perfectly cast for this, because you're like, he's just playing up for this movie, and then you watch like LA Confidential and he's like,
no, that's him.
You know, my dad beat up my mom, so I beat the shit out of my dad. And you're like, Jesus, could you fucking emote, dude?
He's mumblecore in like big movies. But then sometimes he just gets triggered and he has these bursts out, and it's just like he's mad because Calhoun is making those bottled up emotions bubble out, and he's more mad about that. I think he doesn't like how he makes him feel about himself more than the actual acts of what they're doing,
because he didn't actively see. They came by it differently. Like, Ives just ate all those people. Calhoun, well, the cat's out of the bag.
Right.
Calhoun ate all those people to live, but like Guy Pearce pretended to be dead, and like blood trickled into his mouth.
Yeah.
So
just came by accidentally.
Yeah. He accidentally clicked on the gay part of Pornhub. He's like, oh no, I guess I'm gay
I got
now.
HIV from a blood transfusion.
Yeah.
But I honestly think that might be part of the allegory there.
Yeah.
Probably.
Oops, I'm gay now. I mean, yeah, thinking about this movie now, and you kind of already said who this is for. It's for those cult film fans that just might have missed a couple, But you know, how would you sell?
I think
This
this
one.
would appeal to an even broader audience because I mean, I think people who like war films would like something like this. I
I'd
think
be too smart for that. I don't know.
No,
Maybe
I don't.
that's-
No, I don't think so. Because I mean, you have that military Mexican American War aspect of it. I think that draws a lot of people in because it has that kind of angle to get you in there. And I think, especially horror fans, and because I don't want to put this movie into like a peg. You know what I mean?
Yeah. We can throw out
'cause-
some analogous films. You know what's funny? I think to me one of the closest analogs of this movie is American Psycho.
Yeah.
See,
But I think
and
this is a little more accessible than a little bit more.
They're
accessible.
very different, but at the same time, like if like Fargo, I guess we keep bringing
I
up the wood
I
chipper,
swear to
but,
God,
like
I was just gonna say
No, that's-
Frontier Fargo would be the two words I would sell
Yeah.
this to someone.
yeah,
But I mean, I think American Psycho is pretty apt because it's that same tone. It's not a horror comedy, but it's just grotesque and it's brutal with a
that's
fringe of a touch of comedy with no
And
jokes.
I think more female directors should do projects like this because
Yes.
if we're going to compare this to American Psycho, that's another female director who found different things funny. Like the book American Psycho was not funny ever, but the movie was funny. But the stuff that she talks about in the director commentary that she thought was funny was when the guys were dicks. Like she thought it was hilarious when they were rude. And I when you know that and you go back and watch American Psycho, you're like, okay, I get it. I really like her take. So, there's possible Antonia Bird, who did a lot of really basic British TV, like EastEnders. If you know anything about EastEnders, it's just a show that's been on for 100 years. Coming from that sensibility, some of the stuff, having done really dry TV comedy, I really think that you can see some of that thumbprint on this movie. There's some of the stuff that was funny about this, but you can't. It's hard to say why this movie's funny.
Yeah. No,
and I
very much
think
agree
that
with
was
that.
her point of view.
Yeah, and just the way that it starts out, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be like a Idiocracy. Like this is gonna be kind of a parody. Just that like first like 5 minutes of the credit crawl with those quotes, and then the meat scene. I'm like, okay, this is gonna, I kind of know what I'm in for. And then it just keeps evolving and it gets darker. Like it kind of loses the veneer of a comedy after a while, and it's just like then it just gets like kind of more pure horror, but it works. It has this beautiful like slow transition into what it is, and then when the credits roll, you're like, well, that was silly because the premise of it's just so silly.
Yeah, and the humor comes out of nowhere sometimes, and I think that's another reason why the humor is kind of just a little off, kind of that off-kilter humor, is that when it's being delivered in these horrific conditions, in these horrific scenes. Like one of the I always laugh when they're laying there in the bear trap, and he goes, that was really
sneaky.
It's just, that's the last thing you expect him to say under those circumstances. For him to say that, you're just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Okay, I know this thing bombed in the box office.
Oh, this made $2 million.
Yeah,
but the budget was only 12, so no one like
So it wasn't
they didn't advertise this movie.
Not at all.
If they spent $10 million advertising this movie, people would have saw it.
Oh yeah.
To see
Well,
it.
and another thing is, this came out in 1999. If you look at what popular horror was then, you had the things like the Blair Witch Project, you had Scream and all the teen slashers like Valentine, Urban Legend, I Know What You Did Last Summer.
But
So
that was it seemed like everything was I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah.
And like Final Destination. They were making horror movies almost exclusively as date movies, and this is not a date movie.
No. This was Deliverance. This was
this was a rarity at that time for horror.
Yeah, it was a little before its time. I think if this had come out 5 years later, I think it might have been embraced a little bit more than it was.
Again, not similar at all, but just similar to that, where it finds its audience later, like Cube, like we said before. It just has that like came out of nowhere. no one saw it, and then people went back for it, just like, oh my God, how did we all miss this? And just who knew that the Czech Republic looked like the American frontier as much? Because
Right.
I swear it looked like Big Bear. It looked like every other place in Northern California.
Exactly. It's like, what part of Oregon was this? It's like, this is Slovakia, bro.
The least funny parts to me, like David Arquette took it to a place where it was almost like he was the most annoying character in this.
Yeah,
but he was like the funniest character in this.
He didn't even really do anything that funny. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Most of the humor came from the
he just looked stoned.
Just
and
looked
you're like,
stoned,
He's
yeah.
like an idiot, like David Arquette. Yeah.
I don't know. I think he cut this film nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, you needed him to take off a little bit of the rough edge, I think.
Yeah.
Editing in here is slick. She had, again, like I think Robert Carlyle said, 2 weeks to prepare for this. To just
Jesus.
resurrect this film from 2 fire directors and just do it. And, you know, by all intents and purposes, if you're measuring it on a financial standpoint, it was a miserable failure.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it's just so sad to see that she probably didn't live to see this get the following that it deserves.
Yeah.
And talk about a do-over on the marketing. Can Vinegar Syndrome pick this up and do like a cool Blu-ray with actual like key art for it? Because I mean, yeah,
has it had a Blu-ray release yet?
Oh, this is such a gorgeous movie.
Yes.
If this doesn't get like remastered, because like the only way to watch this right now is like watch it on Prime, and it's like in 240 on Prime. It's just dog shit. I would love to, because I would love to get this on a nice Blu-ray and then just fuck with the color settings until the edges on the green on all the trees are blurry, and just really get those reds just real red.
Yeah.
And just really just saturate all my rods and cones. That's what you need to do with this movie. And just like watching it on Amazon or rental, it was pretty miserable. Yeah. I have a DVD copy, but I don't have a DVD player, so
it wasn't even like well met critically either. 49% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Nobody knew what to make of this movie, though.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, I don't think they knew how to market it at all, because it's like, I think the original trailer was like extremely dark, straight horror. Is how they tried to sell it, if I remember correctly.
That was really sticky.
He was licking me!
Ravenous. So Ravenous tries bringing cannibal horror into an Old West setting, ending up with an uneven blend that will fail to satisfy most fans of either genre.
Huh.
God. A contemporary film that's like this is something like a Bone Tomahawk. But this isn't as like gory, and it's a little bit more whimsical.
Well, yeah, and Bone Tomahawk started out straight Western, and then it does that pivot towards the end. This one is mixing throughout. Yeah. From start to finish.
Yeah, it's a perfect little cannibal package.
Do you believe this was inspired after a reading of Dashiell Hammett's The Thin Man?
Oh shit!
Seriously?
Yeah, that's where the writer got the idea.
Jesus, who did write this?
Ted Griffin.
Ted Griffin.
Yeah,
wrote Ocean's 11.
He wrote Ocean's 11
and Matchstick Men.
Hey, they're all like
a great fucking movie.
Ensemble cast, so I can see that. Yeah, character driven with a lot of weirdos. He's got a type. I can see that.
Yeah, but this was his first script that he sold.
Damn.
Yeah.
Another reason I like this movie is because I like isolation films, like The Thing, Cabin in the Woods, stuff like that. Yeah. Or you're stuck in a location and you need to fight your way out.
Or eat your way out.
Or just survive.
Yeah. God, well, I'm gonna go. I gotta bring this one to a close so I could go make a nice stew, because I am. I gotta hunger. But yes, thanks for all surviving this show with me. Where can everyone find you when you're not chowing down on your fellow man, Jason Alt?
I'm Jason E. Alt on Twitter. And follow me, but don't follow me through the woods like you're trying to eat me.
Lindsay Washburn, where can they pick your social media clean?
I'm on Twitter as well, at Lindsay Washburn or at the Lindsay Washburn. I don't know, one of those. And you can find me on YouTube with my name as well, just Lindsay Washburn.
And you could dive into my meaty bits on the Bird site at John the Host, or you can follow this very show at The Cult of Films. Go ahead and listen to this in podcast form also on iTunes and all that jazz. Leave us little bits and pieces of whatever you want. We won't open the package. We'll just pop it in. We'll see you next time.